You're nothing but a Chinese puppet. AOC screamed at DNI nominee Tulsi Gabbard. Fatal mistake. Tulsi smiled and opened a red folder. Let's discuss your $5 million from Beijing, Congresswoman. What happened next destroyed AOC's life forever. She literally begged Tulsi to stop. Hart Senate Office Building Room 219. 9:43 a.m. The morning sun cut through the tall windows like a spotlight on a stage, and Director of National Intelligence nominee Tulsi Gabbard sat in its beam with the stillness of someone who had learned patience in Iraqi combat zones. Before her lay 5 folders: yellow, pink, blue, green, and red, arranged with military precision. Each one a loaded weapon waiting to be fired. The Senate Intelligence Committee hearing room buzzed with anticipation. C-SPAN cameras focused their unblinking eyes on the witness table, while reporters packed the gallery like vultures sensing carrion. They had come for blood, just not the blood they expected. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez arrived 15 minutes late, because of course she did. Her entrance was choreographed for maximum impact. Red power suit matching lipstick heels, clicking against marble in a staccato rhythm that demanded attention. The Democratic side of the room stirred with excitement. Their attack dog had arrived. "Director Gabbard," AOC said, taking her seat and deliberately mispronouncing the name with a slight smirk. Or should I say, Putin's favorite Democrat. The microaggression landed exactly as intended. Gasps from the gallery, phones raised to capture the moment, but Tulsi's expression remained serene, almost amused. It's Gabbard, Congresswoman, like guard, as in guarding America's interests, something we should discuss today. AOC leaned into her microphone, eyes glittering with the confidence of someone who had never truly lost a fight. Your so-called service record doesn't excuse your cozy relationships with dictators. Assad's apologist, Putin's puppet. You're a traitor to progressive women everywhere. I served in Iraq while you were serving drinks in Manhattan, Tulsi replied calmly. I learned about real threats to America while you were learning to make cosmopolitans. But please continue. The insult stung. AOC's face flushed. You abandoned the Democratic Party because you couldn't handle real progressive values. You're nothing. But a right-wing Congresswoman Tulsi interrupted her hand, moving to the yellow folder. Since we're discussing values, perhaps we should examine yours. Real values, financial values. The slight smile that crossed Tulsi's face was the expression of a chess player moving their queen into position. She opened the folder with deliberate slowness, letting AOC see the thickness of its contents. Let's discuss your Act Blue donations, shall we? The color drained from AOC's face like water from a punctured container. That folder shouldn't exist. Those records were protected, scattered, laundered through thousands of small donations. I don't see how my grassroots fundraising Tulsi's laugh was soft but cutting. Is that what we're calling it? When 3 $7 million in donations show the same names with different addresses, many from people who've been dead for years. The hearing room fell silent. Even the Democrats on the committee shifted uncomfortably. This is a right-wing conspiracy theory, AOC declared, but her voice had lost its earlier confidence. These are your own FEC filings, Tulsi replied, pulling out a stack of documents, starting with the $3.7 million in questionable funds that seemed to appear right after your meetings with some very interesting people. Should I continue, or would you like to reconsider your line of attack? The hunter had become the hunted, and they were just getting started. The yellow folder opened like a mouth ready to devour its prey. spilling forth documents that had been meticulously compiled over months of investigation. Director Gabbard's team had done their homework, and it showed in every highlighted passage, every cross-referenced transaction, every devastating detail. The Congresswoman will have her time for questions after my testimony. Tulsi continued her voice, carrying the measured authority of someone holding all the cards. But since she's raised the issue of loyalty and values, let's examine some facts that every American deserves to know. Behind Tulsi, her aide, a young former military intelligence analyst named Captain James Walsh, connected a laptop to the room's display system with practiced efficiency. The first slide appeared a spiderweb of financial transactions so complex that several senators leaned forward adjusting their reading glasses. Act Blue, the Democratic fundraising platform, processed millions in donations to Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez's campaigns. On the surface, nothing unusual. It's when we dig deeper that things become interesting. Click. A new slide materialized, showing data analytics that would make a forensic accountant weep with joy. 3,847 duplicate donations. Let me repeat that number. 3847. Same names, different addresses. Sometimes the same name appears with 17 different addresses in a single day. Either these donors have mastered quantum physics and can exist in multiple places simultaneously, or something else is happening. The screen shifted to show a video deposition. An elderly Korean man appeared, his weathered hands folded nervously. In his lap, worry etched into every line of his face. My name Robert Kim. I live Queens 37 year. I donate $27 to AOC one time only. And his accented English carried the weight of confusion and betrayal. But they say I give 2,700 17 times. I have that money. I work janitor. My wife's sick. Where this money come from? The gallery erupted in whispers. Several reporters were already typing furiously on their phones, their Twitter notifications about to explode. Tulsi raised a hand for silence. Mr. Kim is one of hundreds of similar cases. Working-class people whose identities were used without their knowledge. But it gets worse. The next slide showed a list of names with dates, death dates. Margaret Thompson of Brooklyn died, March 2019. Made 47 donations to AOC's campaign in 2020 and 2021. Impressive loyalty from beyond the grave. James Wilson of Queens passed away in 2018. Contributed 83 times in 2022. Should I continue? Point of order, AOC shouted, her voice cracking slightly. This hearing is about the director nominee's fitness. Not the nominee has the floor, Chairman Cotton said firmly, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. And I think the American people are very interested in what she has to say. Continue, Director Gabbard, from the gallery. Sudden movement caught everyone's attention. A middle-aged Latina woman stood up, her hands shaking, but her voice clear. That's my Elena. That's my daughter. Security personnel moved toward her, but Tulsi raised a hand. Let her speak. That's Elena Rodriguez's mother. Elena was a campaign's accountant for Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez. Elena, would you come forward, please? A younger woman, professional in a simple business suit but clearly terrified, stood from a different section of the gallery. Her voice trembled but carried throughout the room. I found the duplicate donations, thousands of them. When I tried to fix them to report them properly, I was told to shut up. When I insisted, when I said we had to report this to the FEC, I was fired. They ruined my life for trying to do the right thing. Thank you, Elena. Your full testimony, including documentation, is in these files. Tulsi turned back to the committee, her expression grave. Ms. Rodriguez provided us with internal campaign emails showing full knowledge of these violations. She was threatened with lawsuits, blacklisted from political work, and had her reputation destroyed, all for trying to follow the law. The screen changed again, showing a web of corporate structures that looked like a money launderer's fever dream. But individual donations, fraudulent as they may be, are just the appetizer. Let's discuss the main course. Revolutionary Strategies, LLC, Progressive Future Alliance, Green Tomorrow PACs, Democracy Rising Foundation, Justice Now Initiative, all shell companies layered like a wedding cake made of deception. All funneling money to AOC's campaigns. New documents cascaded across the screen, each more damning than the last. Let's trace just one thread. Open Society Foundation. Yes, that's George Soros's organization transfers $1.2 million to Democracy Alliance. Democracy Alliance sends $1.2 million to Arabella Advisors. Arabella creates a project called Future Leaders Initiative, which donates to Progressive Future Alliance, which pays Revolutionary Strategies, LLC for consulting, which then makes massive independent expenditures supporting guess who? George Soros is a patriot and philanthropist, AOC blurted out immediately, regretting it as she realized she'd just confirmed the connection. Is he? Let's examine some other patriots supporting your campaigns. The screen filled with new names and dollar amounts. Cheney International, $400,000. Officially an import-export company, actually a front for Chinese intelligence. Beijing Cultural Exchange, $300,000, run by the nephew of a Pilot Bureau member. Harmony Bridge Foundation, $450,000, funded directly by the Chinese Communist Party's United Front Work Department. The room erupted. Reporters were standing now, shouting questions. Several Democratic senators were frantically whispering to their aides, trying to distance themselves from the unfolding disaster. But wait, Tulsi said, raising her voice slightly to cut through the chaos. There's more. Hollywood dark money funneled through entertainment industry PACs, tech billionaire bundles, coordinated to avoid contribution limits. Wall Street progressives, the same ones you rail against publicly, privately funding your campaigns. You talk about fighting money and politics while swimming in an ocean of it. AOC's chief of staff, a young man who'd entered the room with swagger, was now pale and sweating. He leaned over to whisper urgently in her ear, but she shook him off violently. "This is a fascist smear campaign," she declared, though her voice had lost all its earlier authority. "You're making things up. This is what authoritarianism looks like." "Is it?" Tulsi pulled out a USB drive, holding it up for the cameras. "This contains 50 gigabytes of evidence, bank records, FEC filings, forensic accounting reports, internal campaign communications, all legally obtained, all verified by independent analysts, all showing a pattern of systematic fraud that makes Watergate look like a parking violation." She plugged the drive into the laptop. New evidence flooded the screen. Here's an interesting one. May 17, 2022. Your campaign reports spending $50,000 on community outreach in the Bronx. Our investigation shows that money went to a resort in Miami Beach. 23 of your staff members spent 5 days at the Fontainebleau. The only community they reached out to was the pool bar. A photo appeared. AOC and her staff clearly visible cocktails in hand at a luxury resort. June 3, 2022. $75,000 for voter education materials. The money went to a Porsche dealership. The educational material was a Taycan Turbo registered to your partner, Riley Roberts. More photos, more evidence. The walls were closing in. "Mr. Chairman," Tulsi said formally, "I'd like to submit all of this evidence for the record. I believe the committee may want to consider criminal referrals to the Department of Justice." "So noted," Cotton replied, no longer hiding his satisfaction. "The evidence will be entered into the record and copies provided to appropriate authorities." Tulsi closed the yellow folder with an air of finality that echoed through the room, but her hand was already moving to the pink one. "Now, Congresswoman, shall we discuss how a bartender making $26,000 a year is now worth approximately $29 million? Or would you like to apologize for your earlier accusations and withdraw from this hearing?" AOC's response was barely audible. "This isn't over." "You're right," Tulsi agreed, opening the pink folder. "We're just getting started. Let's talk about how you live like Maria Antoinette while your constituents suffer in poverty. Let's talk about the socialist millionaire." The pink folder opened with a whisper that somehow carried more menace than a shout. Inside, photographs and documents had been arranged with prosecutorial precision. Each one a nail in the coffin of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's carefully crafted image. Tulsi Gabbard's expression remained professionally neutral. But there was steel in her eyes as she began this particular revelation. "Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez." She began, her voice carrying the weight of barely contained disgust. "You've built your entire political brand on being the voice of the working class. The young bartender from the Bronx who couldn't afford an apartment in Washington. The every woman fighting for economic justice. It's a compelling narrative. It won you elections. It made you famous. It also made you rich. And it was all a lie." The screen behind Tulsi transformed into a split image that would become infamous. On the left, AOC from 2018, exhausted in her bartender outfit, the picture of authentic struggle that had launched 1,000 progressive dreams. On the right, AOC at last month's Met Gala, draped in a $15,000 Aurora James dress, wearing $50,000 worth of borrowed jewelry. Her makeup alone costing more than most Americans' monthly rent. Let me introduce you to Maria Santos. The video that began playing would haunt AOC for the rest of her life. A woman in her 40s wearing a McDonald's uniform that had seen better days under her eyes, that spoke of endless double shifts, sat in what was clearly a rundown apartment. Children's voices could be heard in the background. "My name is Maria Santos. I live in Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez's district, 5 blocks from her office. I work 3 jobs, McDonald's breakfast shift. I clean offices at night, weekend shifts. At Target, 90 hours a week. I sleep maybe 4 hours, if I'm lucky." Maria's voice cracked, but she continued. "I believed in her. When she said she understood our struggle, I believed. I gave her campaign $25 I couldn't afford. I wrote to her 47 times. 47 times begging for help. My oldest daughter, she's smart. So smart, but I can't afford SAT prep. My son needs dental work that insurance won't cover. My baby has asthma and the apartment has mold, but I can't afford anywhere else." Tears were flowing now, but Maria's voice grew stronger. "You know what? I got back. Form letters. 23. Form letters about systemic change and fighting for the future. Meanwhile, she posts pictures from restaurants where one meal costs more than I make in a week. She promised to fight for us. But look where she lives now. Look how she lives. We're still suffering, and she's at fancy parties. She forgot us the minute she got elected. We were just steps on her ladder." The video ended. Maria Santos stood up in the gallery, her McDonald's uniform visible to all her dignity intact. Despite everything, several photographers captured the moment that would define the hearing, the forgotten constituent confronting the champagne socialist. "Maria is here today," Tulsi said softly, "taking unpaid time off. She cannot afford because someone needs to tell the truth." "Thank you, Maria, for your courage." The entire room could see AOC shrinking in her chair, unable to meet Maria's eyes. Now, let's examine how a public servant on a $174,000 salary lives. Tulsi continued, her voice hardening. New documents flooded the screen. First, the apartment. Technically in her partner Riley Roberts' name to avoid disclosure requirements. Location, Navy Yard, one of DC's most exclusive neighborhoods. Rent, $4,800 per month. That's $5,600 a year, more than Maria's entire income from 3 jobs. Photos appeared of the luxury building. Amenities include a rooftop infinity pool, private, gym with personal training services, a wine bar with a sommelier on staff, concierge service, and underground parking. The apartment itself, 3 bedrooms to on 400 square ft, with a private balcony overlooking the Anacostia River. Very proletarian. "That's not housing in DC, is expensive," AOC protested weakly. "Is it? The average rent in DC is $2,935. You're paying more than double." But let's continue. New images cascaded across the screen. Your wardrobe. Let's start with today's outfit. That red suit identified by fashion experts as Saint Laurent. Retail price $3,200. Your shoes Louboutin $795. Your handbag of Veneta $2,900. You're wearing $6,895 right now, Congresswoman. That's 3 months of Maria's income on your body at this moment. The documentation was relentless. Annual wardrobe expenses based on social media posts and public appearances, approximately $100,000. That's more than your congressional salary. Where does the money come from? "My people loan me things for events. Do they let check?" Receipts appeared on screen. Saks, 5th Avenue, April 12th, $12,000. Bergdorf Goodman, May 3rd, $8,500. Neiman Marcus, June 15th, $15,000. All on credit cards linked to your LLCs. No loans, purchases. But the real revelation is the food expenses. The screen filled with restaurant receipts and credit card statements. 11 Madison Park, $1,100 for 2. Lernadon, $850. Masa 1, $200. You dine at Michelin-starred restaurants an average of 3 times per week. Your monthly restaurant spending $14,000. Your Whole Foods bills average $3,200 per month. That's $17 or $2,000 monthly on food. Maria feeds her family of 4 on $400. Photos appeared showing AOC at these restaurants, champagne in hand, while her social media from the same evenings showed tweets about income inequality and poverty. "Let's discuss that Tesla you mentioned," Tulsi continued relentlessly. Model S Performance Package. Base price $94,990, with your customizations $17,000. You received a federal tax credit of $7,500, a tax credit you've publicly called welfare for the rich and promised to eliminate. You park it in a private garage that costs $450 per month while telling your constituents to take public transportation. The screen shifted to travel records. In the past year, you've taken 312 flights. 74% were first or business class. Your carbon footprint is approximately 89 times the average American's. You've attended climate conferences in Geneva, Madrid, and Dubai, all via private jet. The Dubai trip you posted about sustainable tourism from a hotel room that costs $3,000 per night. But here's what truly reveals your character, Tulsi said, pulling out a specific photo. This is from last Tuesday night. You're at 11 Madison Park, toasting with Dom Perignon. That's 500s per bottle, by the way. The tweet appeared, thinking about all the families in my district going to bed hungry tonight. This is why we fight tax. The rich act wealth inequality. You literally tweeted about hungry families while dining at one of the world's most expensive restaurants. The disconnect is sociopathic. The room had gone completely silent. Even AOC's most ardent supporters couldn't defend this. Let's talk about your taxes, Tulsi continued. You advocate for a 70% top tax rate. Your effective rate last year, 12.8%. How through a web of LLC's deductions and tax strategies, available only to the wealthy. Riley Roberts, Consulting, LLC AOC Media Enterprises. Bronx Progressive Solutions. Each one designed to minimize tax liability. Financial documents filled the screen. You claimed $73,000 in business expenses. Home office deductions for an apartment you don't own. Travel deductions for vacations you called district research. Clothing deductions that would make a Hollywood star blush. You use every loophole you claim to oppose. This brings us to your net worth, Tulsi said, producing a comprehensive financial analysis. In 2018, you claimed to have less than $7,000 in savings. Today, based on financial disclosures and our investigation, between $25 and $29 million. That's a remarkable return for 6 years of public service. Of course, it helps when you monetize every aspect of your position. The screen showed income sources. Book deals, $3.2 million. Netflix documentary, $1.8 million. Speaking fees, $2.7 million. Podcast rights, $900,000. Merchandise sales, $1.4 million. All while collecting your congressional salary and claiming to be a woman of the people. A new photo appeared: homeless veterans in the Bronx. This encampment is 4 blocks from your district office. 17 veterans live here, men who served their country. You walk past them on your way to your Tesla. Have you ever stopped? Ever offered help? Ever done anything besides use them as props in your tweets? One final comparison, Tulsi said as the screen split again. On one side, Maria Santos leaving McDonald's at 5 a.m. for her second job. On the other, AOC stepping out of an Uber Black at 2 a.m. from a $500 per person fundraiser. You're not a Democratic Socialist Congresswoman. You're a champagne socialist, a limousine liberal, a millionaire Marxist who monetizes poverty while living in luxury. You've betrayed every person who believed in you, everyone who saw hope in your story. You didn't fight the system, you mastered it. You became everything you claimed to oppose. AOC's makeup was running now, her carefully constructed image crumbling in real time. Shall we continue? Tulsi asked, reaching for the blue folder. Because your Twitter victims have been waiting years for someone to tell their stories. And unlike you, I actually care about the truth. The blue folder's weight seemed to press down on the witness table as Tulsi opened it. Inside, story after story of destroyed lives had been meticulously documented, each one a testament to the devastating power of weaponized social media. The very platform that had elevated AOC to power had also been her tool of destruction. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez Tulsi began her voice carrying a new edge of genuine anger. You've been crowned the Queen of Twitter. 13 million followers hang on your every word. You've redefined political communication for a generation. But Spider-Man got it right. With great power comes great responsibility. You've used your power to destroy anyone who dares question you. You're not a communicator. You're a digital terrorist. The screen behind her illuminated with a young woman's face, Asian features, bright smile, Columbia University ID visible, radiating the hope and promise of youth. This was Jenny Park, 19 years old, sophomore at NYU pre-med with a 3.9 GPA, first-generation American whose parents immigrated from South Korea with nothing but hope. She worked 2 jobs to help pay for school. Her dream was to become a pediatric surgeon to help children in underserved communities. Your community congresswoman. The image changed to a tweet thread, AOCC's verified account timestamp showing 11:47 p.m. Jenny Park at Jenny Penu thinks she knows better than lived experience. This entitled, Karen needs to check her privilege. Maybe her model minority myth needs a reality check. My followers know what to do with racist enablers. Jenny's crime. Tulsi continued her voice, heavy with disgust. At a town hall on March 15th, she asked you to provide evidence for your claim that you graduated cum laude from Boston University. She wasn't rude, she wasn't aggressive. She simply asked for verification of a public claim. That's all. Within 17 minutes of your tweet, the harassment began. The screen filled with screenshots that made several people in the gallery gasp. Death threats, rape threats. Her dorm address posted, her class schedule shared, photos of her walking to work distributed with captions like, "Would be a shame if something happened." 10,000 threats in the first 48 hours. Her parents' small restaurant in Queens, the one they worked 18-hour days to build, had its Yelp page bombed with fake reviews calling them racist. Their windows were broken. Fascist scum spray painted on their door. They lost 70% of their business overnight. New images, security footage of vandalism, police reports, medical records. Jenny tried to continue attending classes, but your followers found her schedule. They would wait outside her lectures, follow her, photograph her, post her location in real time. She stopped eating, stopped sleeping. Her grades plummeted, and then on April 2nd, a medical report appeared. Clinical language describing horror. 47 Xanax tablets. Her roommate found her. 3 minutes later, and she would have died. She survived barely. 8 days in intensive care. Her parents spent their life savings on her treatment. She dropped out of NYU, her dreams of becoming a doctor of helping children destroyed because she asked you a question. Movement in the gallery. A young woman slowly stood, surgical scars visible on her wrists, her mother supporting her. Jenny Park no longer the bright-eyed student from the photos, but a survivor bearing visible wounds. Jenny, thank you for being here, Tulsi said gently. Your courage in facing your attacker is remarkable. Your full statement is in the record. Jenny's voice was soft but clear. She destroyed my life for asking a question. I just wanted the truth. AOC was frantically patting her pocket's muscle memory, seeking the phone that wasn't there. Jenny is not alone, Tulsi continued, her voice hardening again. Let's meet more of your victims. Click. Officer Michael Wilson, NYPD, 15 years of service. 2 commendations for bravery. Youth basketball coach in the Bronx. He tweeted that your defund the police rhetoric was making neighborhoods more dangerous. Factual statement backed by crime statistics. Your response? Another tweet appeared. Mike Wilson at Officer Wilson Knee is exactly why we need to defund white supremacist with a badge mad that we're exposing his gang. Check his socials, fam. Do your thing. Within hours, his home address was posted, his wife's work information shared, his 6-year-old daughter's school identified. The threats were so severe, so specific that the FBI got involved. Someone sent photos of his daughter at school with crosshairs, superimposed the message, "We know where she is." He had to relocate his family to Ohio. 15 years serving the Bronx. Coaching kids who needed mentors ended because he disagreed with you. Click. Sarah Johnson, Gold Star mother. Her son, Marine Lance Corporal Tyler Johnson, was killed in Afghanistan in 2021. She attended your foreign policy town hall last year. She asked why you voted against veteran mental health funding. Your tweet, the screen showed AOC's response. Sarah Johnson is weaponizing her grief to push fascist military propaganda. Using your dead son to promote imperialism is peak white feminism. Tragic that some people exploit their own families, sacrifice for political gain. #defund the war. Machine. Sarah received a package 3 days later. Tulsi continued, her voice barely controlled. Fake anthrax and a note saying, Tyler deserved to die. That he was a baby killer who got what he deserved. She also received hundreds of messages with photoshopped images of her son's flag-draped coffin defaced with obscenities. A Gold Star mother congresswoman. You targeted a Gold Star mother for asking about veteran funding. The pattern continued relentlessly, face after face, story after story. Miguel Rodriguez, small business owner, questioned minimum wage impacts. You called him a poverty pimp, exploiting workers. His restaurant was vandalized 17 times. He closed after 23 years in business. 12 employees lost their jobs. Dr. Patricia Chen, educator with 30 years' experience, disagreed with your education policy proposals. You labeled her a white supremacist gatekeeper. She was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Cleared of all charges, but her reputation was destroyed. She retired early, ending a career dedicated to teaching in Title I schools. Reverend James Mitchell ran a food bank in your district. Asked why you voted against the farm bill that funded food assistance. You called him a prosperity gospel grifter. His church was protested, vandalized. Donations dropped 80%. The food bank closed. 400 families lost their primary food source. But you don't just destroy randomly, Tulsi said, pulling up new data. Our analysis shows clear patterns. Coordination with specific Antifa accounts that appear within minutes of your attacks. Bot networks that amplify your target's information. Doxing specialists who have your target's addresses posted within an hour. This isn't random harassment, it's orchestrated destruction. Internal Twitter documents appeared on screen, part of the massive leak from the previous year. Twitter's own analysis shows you violated their terms of service 341 times. Any other user would have been permanently banned after 3 violations, but you were protected. Jack Dorsey personally intervened 17 times to keep your account active. Their internal communications called you high-value controversy. You drove engagement. You were profitable hate. Free speech, AOC shouted desperately. First Amendment. The First Amendment doesn't protect targeted harassment leading to violence. Tulsi responded coldly. It doesn't protect what you've done. Let me read some of your deleted tweets. Yes, we have them all. She pulled up archived posts. Violence is the voice of the unheard. Sometimes property damage is speech. Posted during the Portland riots. Deleted after a small business owner was beaten into a coma by people citing your tweet. Cops aren't human beings. They're tools of oppression that must be dismantled by any means necessary. Deleted after 2 officers were ambushed in your district. One is still in a wheelchair. White women tears are violence. Respond to violence with appropriate force. deleted after a yoga teacher was hospitalized by a mob that referenced your tweet during the attack. But here's the most damning evidence. Tulsi continued producing printed emails, internal communications from your digital team. Your digital director, Marcus Thompson, wrote, "Boss, maybe we should ease up on the targeted harassment. Someone's going to die." Your response, "Sometimes revolution requires sacrifice." These people chose to oppose progress. Keep the pressure on. The gallery was stunned. Even Democratic senators were shifting uncomfortably, trying to distance themselves from their colleague. You knew people were being hurt. You knew lives were being destroyed. You didn't care. In fact, you enjoyed it. This is from your Finina, your fake Instagram account. A screenshot appeared AOC under the username BronxRealness94, posting watching another capitalist pig melt down in real time. They thought they could come for the queen. My army doesn't play. Destroyed. Suddenly, AOC lunged across the table trying to grab an AIDS phone. Security stepped forward immediately, professionally but firmly returning her to her seat. The Congresswoman appears to be suffering from withdrawal, Tulsi observed. 53 minutes without tweeting. Must be excruciating. She closed the blue folder with deliberate finality. Your victims are watching today. Congresswoman Jenny from her apartment, where she's still afraid to leave. Officer Wilson from Ohio, where he's trying to rebuild. Sarah Johnson through tears for her son. The others from hiding from hospitals, from unemployment lines. 3 of your victims aren't watching because they took their own lives after your attacks. Their blood is on your timeline. The human cost was no longer abstract. It filled the room heavy and undeniable. "Ready to discuss your Green New Deal?" Tulsi asked, reaching for the green folder. Because that's where your digital terrorism meets financial fraud and treasonous betrayal of American workers. That's where people didn't just lose hope, they lost everything. The green folder seemed to pulse with radioactive energy as Tulsi opened it. This wasn't just another scandal. This was the systematic betrayal of American workers disguised as environmental virtue. The very people AOC claimed to champion had been sacrificed on the altar of her ambition and greed. The Green New Deal. Tulsi began her voice carrying the weight of barely suppressed fury. House Resolution 109, introduced February 7, 2019. Your signature achievement. The legislation that transformed you from freshman representative to global icon. A 10-year mobilization to remake the entire American economy. You called it the greatest transformation in human history. You were half right. It was the greatest fraud in American political history. The screen behind her illuminated with a professional, head shot of a man in his 30s, worry lines etched prematurely into his face. This is David Martinez, former senior policy advisor for the Green New Deal. David worked on your team for 3 years. He believed in the mission. He thought he was saving the planet. David, would you please stand? A nervous-looking man rose from the gallery, his hands trembling as he gripped the railing. His voice, when he spoke, carried the weight of guilt and determination. I helped write the Green New Deal. I believed we were creating hope for future generations. But it was all lies. We were told to hide the real numbers, make it look achievable, make it look like it wouldn't destroy millions of lives. When I objected, when I tried to include real data, I was told to think about the greater good. The greater good was campaign donations and speaking fees. Thank you, David. Please sit down. I know this is difficult. Tulsi turned back to the committee, her expression grave. David came to me 6 months ago with 10,000 pages of internal documents. Let me show you what your government has been hiding. The screen filled with internal memos, emails, and spreadsheets marked "Confidential, do not distribute." First, the real job losses. Publicly, the Green New Deal promised millions of new jobs with zero displacement. Internally, your own analysis showed 6.7 million jobs lost in year one. Not transitions, not retraining, lost, destroyed. Entire communities eliminated with the stroke of a pen. New documents appeared. Energy costs for average families. Public claim minimal increase offset by savings. Reality from your own studies, 400 to 600% increase. A family paying $200 monthly would pay $1,000. But you knew the rich would be fine. They could afford solar panels, Teslas, heat pumps. The poor, they'd choose between heat and food. Climate change is an existential AOC started weekly. Crisis, then why lie about solutions? Tulsi's voice cracked like a whip. Why promise the impossible while profiting from false hope? But let's discuss who really profits from your plan, and financial documents flooded the screen. Your partner, Riley Roberts, web developer on your disclosures. Reality founder and CEO of Carbon Chain, a blockchain carbon credit company. What a remarkable coincidence that Section 7, subsection 12 of the Green New Deal specifically mandates a blockchain-based carbon credit system. His exact system, his patent, corporate valuations appeared. Current value of Carbon Chain, $47 million. Projected value if the Green New Deal passes, $2.8 billion. Your boyfriend becomes a billionaire from legislation you wrote. In any other era, we'd call this corruption. In yours, it's disruption. But Riley's just the appetizer. Here's the main course. The screen exploded with corporate logos and financial connections. Every major provision of the Green New Deal benefits specific companies. Companies whose executives just happen to max. Donate to your campaigns. Solar panel requirements, benefits. Cyolix Solar, 65% market share, manufactured in Xinjiang using Uyghur slave labor. Wind turbine mandates advantages. Chai Wind Corporation, People's Liberation, Army-owned battery storage requirements, dominated by Catel Chinese state-owned enterprise. You're not saving the planet. You're selling America to China. I support American workers. AOC protested desperately. Do you? Let's ask them. The screen changed to show video of three men in work clothes, their faces weathered by years of honest labor. These men are here today. They represent millions whose lives you've destroyed with empty promises. Gentlemen, three men stood in the gallery. The first, a black man in his 50s, spoke with a voice thick with emotion. My name is John Stevens. I'm a third-generation coal miner from Pennsylvania. My grandfather, Doug Cole. My father, Doug Cole. I've been underground for 30 years. It's hard work, dangerous work, but honest work. Union work. It fed my family, sent my kids to college, built our community. His voice broke. You promised us retraining. Said we'd build solar panels, install wind turbines. Just transitions, you called it. You know what? We got pink slips and food stamps. My son couldn't find work, couldn't provide for his family like I provided for mine. He killed himself last month. Left a note saying he was a failure. He wasn't a failure. You failed him. You failed all of us. The gallery was silent, except for muffled sobs. The second man, Latino, younger but equally broken, spoke next. Tony Rodriguez, oil platform worker from Texas. 47 guys from my platform got laid off the day after you celebrated the drilling ban. You said we'd get green jobs. Those jobs went to China. My cousin started dealing to feed his kids. He's doing 20 to life now. That's your green future, destroying American families while China gets rich. The third, a white man with calloused hands could barely speak through his tears. Mike Campbell, pipeline welder from North Dakota. My whole town died when you killed the Keystone XL. 1,200 jobs gone overnight. 3 families committed suicide. Murder fathers who couldn't face poverty killed their families, then themselves. But you still fly private jets, still got heat in your luxury apartment, still got your Tesla. You destroyed us for nothing, for lies. Gentlemen, thank you for your courage, Tulsi said softly. America sees your pain. America knows your truth. Congresswoman, would you like to respond to these American workers whose lives you've destroyed? AOC stared at the desk, unable to meet their eyes, her hands shaking. Let's continue. Dr. Lisa Wang, former climate scientist for the Green New Deal team. Dr. Wang, an Asian woman in professional attire, stood her bearing dignified despite obvious fear. I have a PhD from MIT in atmospheric physics. I believe climate change is real and urgent. I joined Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez's team to help create real solutions. Instead, I was pressured to falsify feasibility studies. They wanted me to say, we could replace all air travel with high-speed rail in 10 years. It's physically impossible. We couldn't build the infrastructure in 50 years. They wanted me to claim we could retrofit every building in America in a decade. We don't have enough construction workers to do it in a century. Her voice strengthened. When I refused to lie, when I insisted on including real data, I was called a sellout to big oil. I was blacklisted, smeared on social media. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez personally tweeted that I was a climate denier in disguise. My house was vandalized. My children were threatened. All for telling the truth about physics. And thank you, Dr. Wang. Your full analysis is included in our evidence. Tulsi turned back to the screen. But here's the darkest truth about the Green New Deal. While destroying American energy independence, guess who benefits? Let's follow the money. New financial documents appeared. Chinese solar companies have donated $3.2 million to Green New Deal advocacy groups that then donate to your campaigns. Chinese wind companies, $2.7 million. Chinese battery companies, $4.1 million. You're not just taking their money, you're doing their bidding. Speaking fees tell the same story. Climate conferences that are actually funded by Chinese state enterprises, $75,000 to speak in Shanghai, $100,000 in Beijing, $150,000 in Shenzhen. Always the same message: America must abandon fossil fuels immediately. China, meanwhile, builds a new coal plant every week. The screen showed industrial images. Since you introduced the Green New Deal, China has increased coal production 40%. They're burning what we won't, but their emissions don't count in your equation, do they? Only American jobs matter for destruction. But here's the ultimate irony, Tulsi said, pulling up AOC's travel records. Your personal carbon footprint, 312 flights last year, 74% first or business class. Carbon emissions equivalent to 89 average American families. You tell others to give up their cars while you fly private. You demand they give up meat while you dine at steakhouses. You are the climate hypocrisy made flesh. A final image appeared. American workers at a job fair desperate, while in the corner, a made-in-China stamp. The Green New Deal isn't environmental policy. It's economic warfare against American workers. It's the greatest wealth transfer in history from American families to Chinese corporations, from the working class to the consulting class, from honest labor to your bank account. Tulsi closed the green folder slowly, her movement deliberate and final. "One more folder to go," she said, lifting the red one. Its color seemed to reflect the blood that would soon be in the water. This is where greed becomes treason, where hypocrisy becomes betrayal, where we discover that selling out American workers was just practice for selling out America itself. Ready to discuss your real foreign friends? Congresswoman, ready to talk about Beijing and Thrawn? AOC's lawyer stood up again. "My client needs—" "Sit down, counselor," Chairman Cotton commanded. "Your client needs to answer for potential treason. Director Gabbard, please continue. Show us how deep this betrayal goes." The red folder opened like a wound, and what bled out would stain American politics forever. The red folder lay open before Tulsi like a portal to hell, its contents representing the ultimate betrayal not just of political principles or constituents, but of country itself. The hearing room, already thick with tension, seemed to contract as everyone leaned forward, sensing that the worst was yet to come. "Before we proceed," Tulsi said, her voice dropping to a tone that made seasoned senators shift uncomfortably, "I need to remind everyone that what I'm about to present has been verified by multiple intelligence agencies. The FBI, CIA, and NSA have independently confirmed these findings. This isn't opposition research or political theater. This is documented evidence of potential treason." She paused, letting the weight of that word treason settle over the room, like a shroud. "Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, you've spent years calling me a Russian asset for advocating diplomatic dialogue. You've accused me of being Assad's puppet for opposing regime change wars. You've labeled me a traitor for questioning military interventions. Classic projection, as we're about to see, because while you were making these accusations, you were literally taking money from and meeting with agents of hostile foreign powers." The screen behind her went dark for a moment before displaying a grainy but unmistakably clear surveillance photo. AOC entering a building, looking over her shoulder, furtively trying to pull up a hood despite the warm weather. January 15th, 2023, 2:47 p.m. Chinese Consulate, New York City service entrance. You thought you were being clever using the loading dock. You thought there were no cameras. You were wrong. More photos appeared in sequence, a damning slideshow of clandestine meetings, different dates spanning 2 years. Sometimes the front entrance, sometimes the back, always with the body language of someone who knew they were doing something wrong. 17 documented visits to the Chinese consulate, not constituent meetings, not cultural events. Private meetings with Chen Yi, Second Secretary for Cultural Affairs. Except Chen Yi isn't a cultural attaché. He's MSS Ministry of State Security, Chinese intelligence. His real name is Chen Wei-ming, and he runs intelligence operations targeting American politicians. Constituent services. AOC blurted out, her voice cracking. Chinese Americans in my district needed help with what encrypted communications? The screen filled with technical data that made several senators gasp. These are signal messages between you and Chen, recovered through NSA surveillance authorized by FISA Warrant 2023-782. Legal surveillance of a known foreign intelligence operative. That happened to capture your communications. Let me read some highlights pulled out. Reading glasses with theatrical precision, knowing every second of delay twisted the knife deeper. January 20th. Red Star package, delivered as discussed. Beijing. Appreciates your position on Taiwan defensive weapons sales. Red Star, that's you, Congresswoman. Your codename in Chinese intelligence files. February 15th. Your insights on Armed Services Committee discussions, very valuable. Next payment through usual channels. You were selling classified committee. Briefings. March 3rd. Uyghur situation requires careful handling. Your statement helped redirect attention. Bonus approved. You were paid to deny genocide. The room erupted. Senators were shouting. Reporters were frantically calling their editors. But Tulsi raised her hand for silence. But China isn't your only friend, is it? New images appeared. October 2022, Geneva, Switzerland. Officially, you were attending a climate conference. Unofficially, the screen showed AOC at a restaurant with a bearded man in an expensive suit. Javad Zarif, former Iranian foreign minister, current shadow advisor to the regime. You met him for 3 hours at Restaurant Bayview. No American diplomatic personnel present. No State Department notification. Just you, him, and his intelligence team. We know because the Swiss recorded it. They share intelligence on Iranian operations with us. Audio began playing through the room's speakers. The quality was crystal clear, the voices unmistakable. AOC's voice: the sanctions are destroying ordinary Iranians. I have influence with the Progressive Caucus. I can build congressional opposition. Zarif's voice: the Islamic Republic has friends who understand justice. Perhaps we can discuss how to make your advocacy more effective, more profitable for all concerned. AOC's voice laughing as long as it funds the fight against fascism here at home. American fascism. I mean the real enemy. Zarif's voice: of course, death to fascism, death to all enemies of progress. Shall we discuss numbers? The recording ended. The silence was absolute. That conversation was worth $5 million. Tulsi continued relentlessly, routed through 14 different organizations. The Al-Mustafa Foundation in Lebanon to the International, Peace Institute in Brussels to the Progressive Policy Alliance in Canada to your campaign PACs. Iranian money, terrorism money, blood money. But wait, there's more. New documents flooded the screen. Hamas fundraising networks. You spoke at 3 events for the Palestinian Children's Relief Fund. Sounds humanitarian, doesn't it? Except FBI. Financial forensics traced that organization's money. 60% went to Hamas military wing. You helped terrorists buy rockets that killed civilians. Hezbollah sympathy organizations, the American Friends of Lebanon, another humanitarian front. You received $200,000 in donations from their board members. That money traces back to Hezbollah's criminal enterprises: drug running, human trafficking, weapons smuggling, Muslim Brotherhood fronts, the Council for Democratic Inclusion, the Future Leaders Initiative, the Progressive Faith Alliance, all Brotherhood connected, all donors, all given private access to congressional offices, to classified briefings, to you. The screen changed to show a woman in FBI windbreaker face, pixelated voice, modified but still clear and authoritative. Special Agent Michelle Torres, FBI Counterintelligence Division. Agent Torres has spent the last 18 months investigating these connections. Agent Torres, the modified voice, carried years of professional experience. We initiated surveillance based on financial irregularities. What we found was beyond our worst expectations: systematic contact with known intelligence operatives, financial transfers timed with policy positions, classified information appearing in foreign intelligence communications within days of subject receiving briefings. In 23 years of counterintelligence work, I've never seen such clear evidence of compromise. Can you be more specific? Tulsi prompted. After subject was briefed on Taiwan Strait naval positions, that exact information appeared in PLA naval intelligence reports. After subject attended Afghanistan withdrawal briefings, Iranian intelligence knew our timetables. After subject was briefed on Israeli defense capabilities, that information was in Hamas planning documents we captured. This isn't speculation. This is documented intelligence compromise. Thank you, Agent Torres. Tulsi turned back to AOC, whose face had gone from red to white to green. You sold classified information to our enemies. You betrayed intelligence that got people killed. You're the Russian asset, AOC screamed suddenly, spittle flying from her lips. You met with Assad. You met with Putin. You're the traitor, not me. I met with foreign leaders. Tulsi responded with deadly calm. Openly with State Department knowledge and approval, as a member of Congress, conducting oversight, advocating for peace and dialogue. You met with intelligence operatives, secretly took their money and sold out your country. We are not the same. More evidence cascaded across the screen. Bank records from Cyprus, shell companies in Malta, communication intercepts showing coordination between AOC's public statements and foreign propaganda campaigns. Every time you attacked American foreign policy, Beijing amplified it through their bot networks. Every time you undermined our alliances, Thran celebrated with bonuses to your accounts. Every time you leaked classified information, people died. Americans died. Allies died because of you. The screen showed photographs, young soldiers, intelligence officers, local allies. Staff Sergeant Rebecca Thompson killed by an Iranian-supplied IED in Iraq after militia received intelligence about patrol routes. Intelligence leaked from your committee. CIA officer Michael Chen executed in China after his cover was blown. His identity was in briefings you attended, and Chinese intelligence files. Fahim al-Rashidi, Afghan interpreter, beheaded by the Taliban after they learned he was seeking evacuation. His name was on a list you had access to that ended up in enemy hands. Their blood is on your hands, Tulsi said quietly. You didn't just betray abstractions, you betrayed people. Americans who died because you sold secrets for speaking fees and campaign donations. Suddenly, AOC's chief of staff stood up and walked out. Then another aide. Then another. Like rats fleeing a sinking ship. Her entire staff abandoned her in full view of the cameras. Even her lawyer was packing his briefcase. I need. Where's my lawyer? AOC whispered, looking around frantically as her attorney headed for the door. Leaving already, Chairman Cotton observed dryly. Can't say I blame him. Treason cases are career enders for defense attorneys, too. Tulsi pulled out a final set of documents holding them up for the cameras. These are federal warrants signed by 3 judges. As we speak, FBI agents are executing searches at your offices, your apartment, your partner's business, and 12 other locations. The charges include violation of the Foreign Agent Registration Act, the Espionage Act, money laundering, and, depending on what else they find, potentially treason. As if orchestrated, the doors to the hearing room opened. 6 FBI agents entered, taking positions around the room. Not moving toward AOC, not yet, but their presence making the situation crystal clear. This wasn't political theater anymore. This was the prelude to arrest. You called me Putin's puppet, Tulsi said, her voice now carrying a note of personal satisfaction. You called me Assad's apologist. You called me a traitor to women, to progressives, to America. Every accusation was a confession. Everything you accused me of you were doing yourself. But there's one difference between us, Congresswoman. The screen now showed a split-image Tulsi in military uniform in a combat zone next to AOC entering the Chinese consulate. I wore the uniform. I took an oath. I served in combat zones where your leaked intelligence got people killed. I defended the Constitution while you sold it to the highest bidder. We are not the same. We were never the same. I'm a patriot. You're a traitor. And everyone can see it now. AOC sat alone at her table, abandoned by staff, lawyer, and allies. Tears streaked her makeup as the full weight of her situation crashed down. The woman who had lived her life in 280 character bursts of manufactured outrage was facing the rest of her life in federal prison. The committee will vote on criminal referrals immediately following Director Gabbard's confirmation vote. Chairman Cotton announced, "Given the evidence presented, I believe the vote will be unanimous. The witness should remain available to federal authorities. Marshals, please ensure the witness doesn't leave the building." 2 U.S. Marshals moved to positions near AOC who looked like a trapped animal seeking escape. In America, Tulsi concluded standing and gathering her materials. The truth always wins. It may take time, it may take courage, but the truth always wins. And the truth is that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is a foreign agent who sold out her country for money and fame. The truth is that justice is coming. The truth is that treason has consequences. The image that would define the moment came as AOC slumped forward, her head hitting the table so racking her body. The socialist superstar reduced to a broken traitor, exposed and alone. Truth had won, and it was devastating. The digital explosion began before Chairman Cotton's gavel had finished echoing through the hearing room. Within 17 minutes, AOC Exposed had shattered every social media record in existence. 150 million mentions in the first hour, 2 billion by day's end. The servers at Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram strained under humanity's collective gasp of horror and vindication. President Donald Trump's Truth Social post came at 11:47 a.m., vintage Trump in its triumphant simplicity. I told you so. AOC EOS. America's original criminal Tulsi Gabbard is a true patriot who exposed the biggest fraud in political history. Fake news media protected AOC for years. Apologize now. Treason equals death penalty. But this wasn't just conservative celebration. The horror transcended party lines, creating a rare moment of bipartisan revulsion. On CNN, a network that had platformed AOC countless times, Jake Tapper sat in stunned silence for 13 seconds and eternity in cable news before managing, "If these allegations are true and the evidence is overwhelming, this is the most shocking political betrayal in American history. We've been covering a foreign agent. God help us." Van Jones broke down on air, his voice cracking. I defended her. I called her critics racist. I said she was the future. We all did. And all along, how many people died because we refused to see? How many warnings did we ignore because we liked her tweets? Rachel Maddow on MSNBC delivered perhaps the most devastating assessment. I've spent years fighting conservative conspiracy theories, but this isn't a theory. This is documented treason. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez took money from our enemies and sold out American intelligence. Everyone who enabled her, including me, owes this country an apology. The squad's dissolution was immediate and brutal. Ilhan Omar released a statement within minutes. I am shocked and horrified by today's revelations. I had no knowledge of any foreign connections and condemn in the strongest terms any collusion with hostile powers. I am cooperating fully with authorities. Rashida Tlaib went further. AOC's betrayal of progressive values and American security is unforgivable. I am calling for her immediate expulsion from Congress and support the fullest prosecution under law. Even Ayanna Pressley, once AOC's closest ally, distanced herself with surgical precision. The evidence presented today reveals a betrayal beyond comprehension. I was deceived like everyone else. My thoughts are with the families of those who died because of these treasonous acts. Bernie Sanders at an impromptu press conference looked, "Every one of his 82 years, I've been fighting for working people for 50 years. To discover that someone I mentored, someone I believed in, was selling them out to foreign powers while pretending to champion them. This is the darkest day of my political life, but the real devastation came from the Bronx. Outside AOC's district office, a crowd that began as dozens swelled to thousands. American flags waved everywhere. Chants of USA, USA mixed with traitor, traitor. The constituency that had believed in her promise now faced the brutal reality of her betrayal. Maria Santos, the McDonald's worker who had testified, stood before a forest of microphones. She robbed us twice. First our hope, then our country. We thought she was different. We thought she cared. She was worse than the rest because she made us believe. My children asked me why I'm crying. How do I tell them their hero was a traitor? Jenny Park recovered enough to speak publicly, posted a simple message that was shared millions of times. She tried to destroy me for asking a question. Now we know why she couldn't answer. The truth would have exposed her treason. Thank you, Director Gabbard, for the justice I thought I'd never see. The vote to confirm Tulsi Gabbard as Director of National Intelligence wasn't close, 89-1. Even Democrats couldn't deny the competence, courage, and patriotism she'd displayed. The 11 holdouts were the most progressive members, clinging to ideological purity even as their movement burned around them. Senator Chuck Schumer, delivering the Democratic caucus's position, looked haunted. Director Gabbard has exposed a cancer in our politics. We will support her confirmation and any measures necessary to root out foreign influence, regardless of party affiliation. The criminal referrals passed 100. Not a single senator wanted their name attached to defending AOC. Now the charges were comprehensive. Violation of the Foreign Agent Registration Act, the Espionage Act, conspiracy, money laundering, tax evasion, and 47 counts of lying to federal investigators. By evening, news helicopters circled above AOC's luxury apartment building like mechanical vultures. FBI agents in windbreakers carried out box after box of evidence: computers, files, burner phones. The small crowd that gathered wasn't there to protest. They were there to witness justice. The perp walk everyone anticipated didn't happen immediately. AOC was already in federal custody, having been detained at the Capitol, but leaked photos showed her in the federal courthouse, no longer the confident, revolutionary, but a broken woman in federal detention garb. Her famous red lipstick replaced by tears and terror. Her Instagram Live that night was a tragedy broadcast to barely 50,000 viewers, down from her usual millions. From what appeared to be a federal holding facility, disheveled and desperate, she ranted, "This is fascism. This is what dictatorship looks like. They're silencing me because I speak truth to power. The CIA planted that evidence. The FBI is framing me. My followers need to rise up, resist revolution." The comments destroyed her. "You're a traitor. My son died in Iraq because of you. Enjoy prison, comrade. China's not sending commissary money." Within 72 hours, the political avalanche was complete. 3 primary challengers announced campaigns for her seat, all veterans. Local Democratic clubs that had once worshipped her called for immediate expulsion. A recall petition gathered 700,000 signatures in 48 hours, unprecedented in New York politics. The legal machinery moved with unusual speed. The Southern District of New York announced a grand jury had already been impaneled. Treasury froze 17, accounts totaling $27 million. The House Ethics Committee voted unanimously to recommend expulsion, the first such recommendation since the Civil War. But perhaps the most satisfying moment came during Director Gabbard's swearing-in ceremony. Standing before the American flag, right hand raised, she took the oath of office with the quiet dignity of someone who had earned it through combat, both overseas and in Washington. I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. The emphasis on domestic resonated through the room in her first statement as DNI Gabbard was clear. Our intelligence community has one mission: protecting America from all threats. We will root out foreign influence wherever it hides in terrorist cells, in cyber attacks, and, yes, in the halls of Congress. No one is above the law. No one is beyond accountability. The age of betrayal is over. The age of accountability has begun. Her first official act was Executive Order 001, Comprehensive Review of Congressional Security Clearances and Foreign Contact Disclosure. Every member of Congress would be investigated. Every foreign contact scrutinized. The swamp wasn't just being drained, it was being fumigated. Meanwhile, AOC's empire crumbled in real time. Netflix canceled her documentary and demanded return of the $1.88 million advance. Publishers canceled her book deals. Speaking agencies dropped her. Corporate boards expelled her. The woman who had lived by social media was dying by it, her follower count hemorrhaging by millions per day, as even the most devoted realized they'd been following a foreign agent. The final images that captured the moment came from federal court a week later. AOC and orange jumpsuit shackled being led to her bail hearing. No designer clothes, no perfect makeup, no Twitter army, just a traitor facing justice. The judge denied bail. The defendant has access to millions in foreign funds and connections to hostile intelligence services. She is the definition of flight risk, remanded to custody pending trial. As she was led away, someone in the gallery shouted, "How's that socialism working for you now?" The last photo showed her looking back, tears streaming the revolution she'd promised finally arriving, just not how she'd imagined. In her Pentagon office, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard was already at work. A map of the world covered one wall, red pins marking known foreign intelligence operations. A photo of American soldiers sat on her desk, a reminder of who she served and protected. "Never again," she said to her deputy. "Never again will we allow enemies to buy our leaders. Never again will we ignore treachery dressed in progressive rhetoric. Never again." The age of accountability had indeed begun. And somewhere in a federal detention center, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was learning that in America, eventually, inevitably, the truth wins. Justice had been delivered. The Constitution had been defended. And the enemies of America, foreign and domestic, had been put on notice. The swamp creature had been caught. And this time, there would be no catch and release. This is a work of political fiction. All events, evidence, and dialogue are entirely fictional and created for entertainment purposes. Any resemblance to real events is purely coincidental. The purpose is to entertain through political thriller narrative, not to make factual claims about any real person.